hello, hello. Welcome back to the Mindful LCA podcast. Today, we have some good stuff to talk about. First of all, how you doing though?
I'm here. I'm nervous for sure. Because of the topic. The focus will be a little bit on me, so I'm a little bit nervous. My hands are sweating. I'm having emotions and feelings. Other than that, I am chilling. It's my off day, so I was actually taking a nap before this too. So
Yeah.
it was great.
All right. Good,
How are
good.
you?
Same thing. Tired. I try to rest, but it works the opposite. Like instead of resting, like I try to enjoy the weekend more, and I'd end up not actually resting on the weekend. I feel like I
Mm.
actually rest more during the week because I try to enjoy myself and end up sleeping late, spending more time with Celia or the girls or whatever. So I just end up like more tired. But yeah, other than
Mm.
that, just doing good. Um, let's go with this first. Just a little reminder our goal is to create a safe space for exploring mental health topics, sharing stories, and learning strategies for well being, fostering empathy, understanding, growth, and mostly importantly, love. If you have any you want to send us an email for comments, concerns, topics, be a guest, whatever you want. Mindfulpodcastliving at gmail.com. Mindfulpodcastliving at gmail.com. And as a reminder, Norma's a therapist. If you need it outside of Vegas, she's a life coach. In Vegas, she's a
Yeah.
therapist. So
Yes.
wherever you're at, go ahead and send her a message. And as always, I'm learning. I'm learning. I'll be there at some point, and we'll
Yes, you
get
will.
there.
Mhm.
And yeah, so today uh, we're going to talk about your divorce. And
Yes.
the reason for that is because we were talking about it and we discussed how important it is to tell the stories of our lives and how we deal with it um, when it's dealt with it. I believe properly and in a healthy way. So we're gonna get probably emotional. We're gonna have a real conversation, but I think it's hard talking about things that are hard to talk about is what makes a difference in ourselves and I think in the world and in other people. So she mentioned it to me. um you mentioned it to me like I'm talking to the people. You mentioned it to me in one short conversation, and I thought my reaction was like, you got to record this because I haven't heard this perspective, and I think it's something that people don't really talk about. And don't worry, my topic is coming and I'm just as nervous just even thinking about what I'm talking about next. But yeah, but let's get right to it. So yeah, today I'm gonna take a step back. You're gonna be the main storyteller, the one that talks the most, and I'm just gonna listen and just ask you some questions. And
Yeah.
all right, whenever you're ready.
When you say that I shared it with you and you're like, "Oh, you need to record this. I haven't heard this perspective." Can you believe I don't remember what you're talking about? I'm like,
Oh,
I don't know what you're talking about. So maybe remind me because I'm like, what did I say?
but you were talking about how like you the thing before even anything is just talking about the struggle.
Mhm.
That alone, it doesn't even have to be like a specific thing, because I believe that's something that people don't talk about again, right? Like, to be honest, like I was talking to a few people like about this, about the conversation we're about to have and the conversation that I'm going to bring up, and they were like, well, why don't you just bring it up as like a made up question, and why don't you do like a made up thing about like, well, maybe it doesn't necessarily have to be you guys to talk about your stuff. And yeah, we could fake it and I can talk about like, oh yeah, someone sent about some shit about their experience with divorce or something like that. But part of it, like I said, is completely different when you're talking about your own perspective. And I think I've never encountered someone talk openly about their divorce. And I know a shit ton of
Mm.
people that split up and have been through a divorce. So
Mhm.
I think it'll be very helpful. I don't quite remember specifically what was it about it, but just even the fact that stood out to me, the fact that you were talking about it was like, oh, this is something that people don't really talk about, honestly. And how, yeah, it's coming as I'm talking about it, how you were being so honest about your role and
Yep.
what you were doing right, what you're doing, how you handle the cheating and all that stuff, how you handle that. And it's like a good perspective to see, like I said, to somebody like you that's handling it in the right way. That was what stood out to me. What you were
Okay.
aware, you're aware of your struggles and how you were trying to get better and all that. I think that's the thing that stood out to me.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. So yes, I was married. Um I was with the my ex-husband since 2015, so a total of 8 years.
Hmm.
Um and married, this would have been our sixth year married. I got a divorce last year in March. Um so now that I am like outside of the shit, if you will. I mean, not that the marriage was shitty. The marriage itself was not shitty. Um when I say like out of the shit, I mean like the wounds, right? That I wasn't aware that I had, or maybe I was, but I wasn't working on. Maybe the wounds that he has, because I was in a heterosexual relationship, and now that I am out of it, I'm like, holy shit, like these things were there all along, but because of my wounds, I was not able to see it. So after post divorce, um, gosh, I don't even know like where to like start. Um, but now after, I'm like, oh my God, poor guy, poor guy. I can now see again like my role in it.
Hmm.
Right. I think the relationship started, um just the way the relationship started too. It was like, come on, girl. I had broken up with a previous partner of like 3 years. And then I met him, my ex-husband, 3 weeks after. Um and he started courting me, but I wasn't really interested because I was like, I had just broken up with somebody else, right? But I was like, fuck buddy, why not, right? So like one thing that I take a lot of pride in is being super super honest. And like I told him like, hey, I just broke up with somebody, and honestly, like I'm trying to get back with that person, but if you want to fuck around, like let's go for it, like it's fine. And I remember his words were, tú déjame conocerte y ya veremos, right? So I was like, okay. But like from the very beginning, this man was like, he was himself like all along. It wasn't like he showed this like persona and then all of a sudden at some point it changed. Like it was not like that at all. Like he was him. I wasn't able to see those little things. They would bother me, but I will be like, oh, like he'll come around. For example, like I'm a person that needs like a lot of like love, a lot of attention, and he wouldn't necessarily like reply to messages for like hours on end. And I'll be like, "You're not replying to my messages," right? So it was I think for a lot of the relationship, now that I see it, I'm like, that's why I'm like, poor guy. It was me wanting him to change, to adapt, to be the person that I wanted him to be. And how unfair is that, right? Because then I wasn't accepting him as he was. Like I was constantly looking to like change him. Um he has an avoidant attachment style, and then we'll talk maybe like about attachment styles later in another episode. So I have a pursuing one. So with him being an avoidant, like he's like the less is better for me. And for me, I'm like, I want all of the things. So like very early on in our relationship, I would be like, when am I gonna meet your parents? And I was like constantly asking him, like, I don't know your parents, I don't know your parents, I don't know your parents. With his friends, even after uh like 8 years of a relationship, I met three of his friends. That's it. And I saw those people like twice. So like he never brought me around to to like anybody. Later on, I found out by like his mom that when he was with me, he was also with somebody else, and I'm like, "Señora, ¿por qué no me dijo?" Um, but
Mm.
but she's like, "It was not like my place, you know." But anyway, so from from the very beginning, like he showed like, "This is what I got, girl." But it like because of my wound of like I have a big abandonment wound, and um like this part of being chosen, right? So then I was constantly like wanting him to like choose me, to like make it about me when it wasn't his job at all. So, and that happened throughout the relationship. Throughout it, I would constantly be like, es que no haces esto, es que no bailamos, es que no salimos. He's also he till this day, I think he is a homebody. He doesn't really like to do stuff. I am an adventurer. Like I like to do a lot of stuff. So then again, I would want him to change who he was and adapt to what I wanted him to be. Um and so that was a lot of our relationship. And that was something that he would tell me constantly. He's like, es que nunca va a ser suficiente para ti, Norma. And I'll be like, yes, it will. Just do this one thing and it'll be enough. And then he would do the one thing and it wouldn't be enough. And then it would be like a
Mm.
something else and it wouldn't be enough. Right. So the messages that I was sending him was that like, I'm never going to be good enough for this person. I'm not making her happy. Right? So then now from like post divorce, I'm like, puta madre, dude. Like I also hurt this human a lot by wanting him to come and rescue me from things that belong to me. And that was a big, big fucking lesson that came post divorce. Um, After a couple months of getting divorced, like I started going to therapy. Um, and like my therapist told me like, hey girl, like you need to get your shit together, like you need to like heal yourself. Hold on, my dogs are like of course wanting to play right now as I am doing stuff. Let me take him outside, they might need to potty.
No worries. Let me pause it real quick.
Yeah.
Right. All right. We're back. Now that you got the doggies out the way.
Thanks y'all for your patience. Being a dog mom, it's not easy. um so yeah, so my therapist was like, girl, you need to like get your shit together. Like you need to look at like your role in this whole ordeal.
Hmm.
Because at the time, like I was really angry because of how my marriage ended. So we'll get a little bit into to that. Like you already um alluded to it as far as like the affair. um but I was like, okay, I guess, right? So like a lot of it came from like doing inner child work with her, and this part of the wound of abandonment, the wound of being too much, of feeling seen, feeling important to somebody, feeling loved. And after I did that work with her,
Can you go
like
more in detail into what that means?
the inner child work.
The abandonment or the wound that you're talking about? Like, how does that? I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. So my gosh, I love you both. I love you, Dad. I love you, Mom. Um, but my parents, they did the best that they could with what they had, right? But growing up, like I said, I need a lot of loving. I need a lot of like nurturing, and that wasn't something that I got a lot from either one of them. So like with my dad, it was a hit or miss. Like it was either like all loving or like nothing at all. So it was like very inconsistent with my dad. With my
Mm.
mom, like is being sick at, right? So then like there wasn't like a lot of that. I'm a deeply feeling human and I've always been like that. So whenever I would have like big emotions, like my nickname when I was little was like, eres muy dramática. And my older brother's actually the one that gave me that nickname, but he couldn't, or he knew how to say dramática, but I think he got it confused. And one day he's like, "Ay, eres bien gramática," and that was always like my nickname.
Mhm.
Sometimes till this day, they still like, "Ay, gramática." Um, so like I like that was one of the messages. So like I'm too much. People are not going to be able to handle me. And emotionally, like my parents were always there as far as um I'm like sweating. Um as far as providing my basic needs, they were always met.
Mhm.
Always. But when it came to emotional support of just me having big emotions and them being like, it's okay for you to have these, like that was not a thing. So like a lot of the abandonment that I'm talking about is emotional. Like a lot of emotional abandonment um with my dad and my mom. So I had to, and I was looking um like I was putting this burden on my husband at the time to be like, come and tell me I'm not too much. Come and like give
Mhm.
me whatever it was that these people were not able to give me, right?
Yeah.
And with his own wounds, like his parents are not affectionate. Like that, not once have I seen them hug or kiss. Like never.
Mhm.
So this man was like the same, right? And that's what happens. Like when we don't address our wounds, we will go looking for those things so that they can be confirmed, right? So then my abandonment wound told me like nobody's really going to show up for you and love you. And people are always going to somehow some way abandon you and like let you go. So in all of
Mhm.
my relationships it has been like that of I'm going to find emotionally unavailable people so that they can confirm that yes, if I am in fact too much. I am in fact going to be emotionally abandoned.
Mhm.
And that's how it was, right? Like with my ex-husband. And by me seeking that out with him and him not able to provide that because that is not his wound, he ended up feeling like he wasn't enough. He was never enough in the relationship.
Mhm.
So that led him to find somebody else that would make him feel enough. I don't think he's aware of that. Okay, this is me and my therapist had understanding that that's probably what he was looking for. Mm, in 2020, I found messages. I didn't find anything concrete, but I found messages with other people. So we separated for a little under a year. And I knew that I still wanted the relationship because I was not in a place to I wasn't ready to like heal. Um so we separated, and but in the back of my head it was like, oh, it could be like his wake up call. Like this will be like his chance to get like his shit together and change, right? And now I think about it, I'm like, que pendeja, dude. Um and not because I didn't like love him, right? Till this day I have a lot of love for him, but it was just like if somebody doesn't want to attend to their wounds, they're not going to.
Mhm.
And he and again, right, of like, okay, we'll get back together, but you have to go to therapy and you have to work on yourself. And one of his coping mechanisms is he appeases. So he'll be like, sí, 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 yo hago todo eso, right? So he said yes to all of it, just that we could get back together. But he never actually like did it. Um, so I mean, I thought things were fine, but still I was like, let's go to couples therapy so that we can like work on this relationship. But it was again me always trying to like come to the side, right? Like let's heal. But I wasn't even like taking accountability for my own shit. It was like, no, I want you to be like the person that I'm needing. Fuck what you need, but I
Mm-hmm.
want you to be like what I want. And yeah, like we tried it again in 2022, late 2022. We started going to therapy. And while we were in therapy, in that process, like I found out, and this is again like my intuition, my woo woo stuff. I Things were okay. And one day, like in the middle of the night, like I woke up like at 3 in the morning, and there was this like just sensation of check his phone, check his phone. But I was going to therapy at that point, individual therapy too, where I'm like, no, girl, like we had said that we're not going to do that anymore. Don't do that, right? Like, because the other time, like that's how I found out that he was talking to other people because I went through his phone.
Mm.
So this time I'm like, no, we're not going to do it like that. And I remember that day waking up, he was getting ready to go to work, and I like, but I don't know, like kind of like a fear maybe. Um, and I looked at him and I was like, "Are we okay? Like, are we good?" And he's like, "Yeah, why?" And I'm like, "Something is telling me to like check your phone." And he's like, "No, todo está bien." I'm like, "Are you doing anything? Are you talking to anybody?" And he's like, "No, everything's fine." And I'm like, "Are you sure? Like, please tell me there's something going on." He's like, "No, things are good. We're good. Okay, gotta go to work." And I'm like, "Okay." Pero esa espinita no se me quitó. I didn't go through his phone that day, and but it was probably like a month like that, where I just like, oh, I don't know, like I just kept having this feeling, and I didn't know anything. But that part of maybe the intuition, the attunement, like I'm like, And I remember like one day we went to like breakfast, and I asked him again. I'm like, Abraham, his name is Abraham. And I'm like, Abraham, please, I need you to be honest with me. What's happening? What's going on? And he's like, nada, todo bien. And I'm like, why do I feel like you're lying to me? And and I guess inside of me, I was like, one, tell me I'm not fucking crazy,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because así me sentía bien loca, because I'm like, why am I having, he hasn't done anything different. Like, he hasn't really had any behaviors that would tell me like he was like doing anything. But I really don't know how to explain it to you. It was just like this heartfelt sensation. And so I wanted him to confirm that I was in fact not crazy, and that if I genuinely think that if he would have been honest with me, and he would have said like, yes, I am in fact seeing somebody else, um but I'm gonna like work on my shit, like actually work on my shit, maybe I would still be married right now. um but just like the lying was like one of the things that I'm like, I cannot be in this relationship anymore. Like I cannot. um and then one day, like, no me aguante, and I did go through his phone, and sure enough, he was having uh an affair. I don't know to what extent, because he didn't share much. Um, and still, like, even when I found a lot of like evidence that like he was indeed seeing somebody else, um, he was like, "Oh no, those are like pictures." I remember one. One picture distinctively where it was a like a gift box and with like roses and like chocolates, and it said te amo, and with a bottle of wine. And that fucking bottle of wine was sitting in my like on top of my fucking fridge because she's like, oh, they give it to us from work. They gave it to us
Oh.
at work. Um, but it was clearly a gift from somebody. And
Hmm.
he says that it was a gift from, I don't remember if they sent it to like work or they were trying to do like um trying something out, but like even when the picture was there, he was still like denying, like, I'm not doing anything, I'm not doing anything. And until I found a phone number that I was suspicious, and I'm like, who is this? And he's like, I don't know. I'm like, who is that, right? So, but I made him call the phone number, and then that's how I found out. Like, he was talking to the girl on the phone as if I weren't there. I'm like, I need you to call this number so I can like know that it is in fact, like, if it's nothing, then just call the phone number and it'll be fine. But yeah, like, yeah, he was having an affair. So then that's what I was like, I gotta go. I gotta go. Like, I cannot do this because it was really it was really painful. Um, I think the part that hurt the most at the moment was the part of me begging him to be honest with me and him denying the whole thing, even when he saw how distraught I was about it. Now I am able to see that that still had nothing to do with me, right? Because at the time I interpreted as like he doesn't care about me. But I think in like his avoidant attachment style is like, I cannot hurt this person, but I have my own wounds that don't allow me to stop this like cheating behaviors. Um, so now I'm like, that's its own wound that has to do with him. It has nothing to do with me. But it took me a while to actually come to terms with that. Like, my therapist is the one that was like, ponte vergas, like, you gotta figure this shit out. Um, and I remember after I had that session with her, I was like, I want to see him. Like, I want to see him because I hadn't seen him since the divorce. And I went to the apartment we used to share together, and I apologized. I apologized for my role in it. And I'm like, look, I'm here to let you know that I don't hate you. I'm no longer mad. I will I will take responsibility for what belongs to me. Um the way I explained it to him was like shoe sizes. I'm like, I'm a size 13 in shoes when it comes to what I am needing from a person. Like, I need a lot. I need a lot of loving, a lot of TLC, like a lot of watering. So I have a 13 size men's shoe, like a Shaquille O'Neal type of like shoe. Like, I need a motherfucking shoe.
Hmm.
And I'm like, and you're just a smaller size. You're a beautiful shoe. I really, really wish that you wear my shoe, but you don't fit on my feet. I need a bigger shoe, and there's nothing wrong with that. I hope you find, I really, really hope you find your shoe, your right size, but it's not me. I can appreciate you and look at your shoe and be like, wow, qué bonito zapato, pero no me queda, no me queda. Tengo que buscar mi Shaquille O'Neal shoe, and I think for me that was one of like, I hugged them, and he like thanked me for saying that, like, I acknowledged him, like, I understand that by me wanting you to like be my Shaquille O'Neal shoe, that was I was constantly making you feel like you weren't enough in the relationship. So if I was constantly for like 8 fucking years feeling like I wasn't enough in this relationship, I too, I understand what made you look elsewhere for somebody to make you feel like you were enough. Like, that's not to say that I'm taking responsibility for your actions of deciding to go out and cheat, because you could have handled it way differently. You could have told me, you could have actually worked on like your relation, like your wounds. You could have done a lot of different behaviors to address that. But you chose the cheating one, and that's okay, but that just means that I can't be in this relationship anymore. But I think like after, cuz before that, like I was really mad at him. I was really really mad. Um and I thanked him. I also thanked him cuz I have I was always like very like scared in relationships of they're going to leave me, right? Cuz that's what people do, cuz I'm a lot. So people leave me. So I too would leave relationships before they would leave me. I would like fuck shit up and sabotage my relationships before that would they would leave me. And I remember looking at him in the eye and I'm like, gracias. Gracias por haberme puesto frente a frente mi mayor miedo, que es el abandono. Digo, porque emocionalmente me estás abandonando al irte con otra, you know? Like, but thank you for making me face my biggest fear of abandonment. Because it literally is happening, and you've shown me that I can have that and I can work through that, and I will be okay. I will be okay. And I think that that conversation was a very beautiful conversation where I felt liberated. I don't know how he felt cuz he doesn't talk much, but after that we were able to be like not friends, but amicable. Like I don't have contact with him, but if I were to like see him down the street, it wouldn't be like, I would say like, "Hi, hope you're well," and go on about my day. But like throughout this process, like I've had to like be very honest with myself, take a lot of accountability for my actions, um, and that has allowed me to like heal a lot from that. Not only from that relationship, but just from a lot of wounds that I've been carrying and unfortunately putting on partners.
Hmm. You're you're not a lot, you know. Not a lot. Me and you are different. We require a lot because we know how beautiful it is. You know, like just reconnecting with you as a friend has been amazing because you feel that shit for me. You know, you are the conversations we're able to have in the podcast and outside of the podcast is something that I've been looking for. You know, something that I look for in my friends. You know, and I going through that journey of understanding that is like this your journey um connects with me, resonates with me because I am looking for relationship and friendships that are like the one we have, right?
Yeah.
That are fulfilling, that are open, that are honest, that we're able to share our feelings and all that stuff. So it's not that we're not the ones that are wrong. The other motherfuckers haven't caught up. You get me? There's nothing wrong with us in wanting to be, like I said, have meaningful, deep, be emotional, be everything that we are as humans. It's hard to find those relationships with people, you know, and I'm constantly like trying to look for them, you know, and trying to find more people that can connect with me in that level. So you're not a lot, you know, you're what a lot of people need, you know, a lot of people
Thank
need, and
you.
they do that. Like,
Thank you. I think I think no. Again, like if you would have said that like a year ago, I would have been like, nah, I am a lot. Um, but throughout this like whole process, that has been one of the things that I've like learned about myself, that I am in fact not a lot. That I require a lot, and that's okay because I can give a lot.
Hmm.
Like, um,
Yeah.
one
Hmm. Yeah.
one of the things that I tell my mom, mm, le digo, yo sé querer bien bonito, right? And granted, like, I'm not, again, not taking away like my role, right? Because even if I knew, if I s- at that point now, like in my relationship, like I, even though I had like a lot of love to give, like I wasn't doing it in the right way either, right? Because like I wasn't able to accept my own allotness, right? Like I wasn't able to embrace the fact that like I have a lot of passion, I have like a lot of energy, I have a lot to give. So I was expecting like this other person to like carry that for me. And in the process, like I hurt him. And I'm sure I've hurt like other partners. So if you have been my partner and are listening, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. um but now in this process, I understand. Granted, I haven't been in a relationship since, so no say what that would actually look like, now. Pero say in my other relationships that aren't necessarily quote unquote romantic, like I have been trying to be very mindful of like how I show up with them, making sure that their needs are taken care of, but also that my needs are taken care of. Um so I'm hoping that whenever I find a partner, because many people, and maybe I don't know if I'm gonna maybe trigger other humans, but cuando dicen ya no me vuelvo a casar, like I'm not gonna get married again, fuck that shit, blah blah, like this and that. I'm like, yo sí quiero casarme otra vez. Yo quiero casarme otra vez. Tengo muchas ganas de casarme otra vez. Porque yo, yeah, like, I do want a relationship like that. I know there's a Shaquille O'Neal shoe out there for me, and I want to find them. I do. Because I'm like, there's no way that I have all of this love and I don't get to like share it romantically with somebody. Like,
Hmm.
I want to like love,
Yeah.
Um, but I'm not willing to accept less than what I know that I can give back. Pero eso ha venido from a place of being alone, actually allowing myself to be alone after the relationship, because that's something that I also didn't do in my, like, literally told you that I had broken up with an ex-partner of 3 years, and then a month after I was fucking around with my ex-husband. So, and that has that had been my pattern of functioning, right? Because I like needed so much validation. I needed somebody to be like, "Oh yeah. Yeah, um you are this or you are that." So I was constantly looking for that. Like I don't feel love. Like I'm rejecting these little parts of myself, like little me. But please, you come and like love her. But I was doing it in the wrong way. So I was like jumping from relationship to relationship. And this has been the first time that I'm not talking to anybody. I'm not fucking around with anybody, not dating anybody. Like literally, I am literally doing this alone, in the sense of I'm not I'm not looking for an outside source to come and give me what I need to give myself. That's just hard. That shit is so hard.
Yeah.
It's worth it. It's worth it. but it's so difficult. It's so difficult. Like, I understand why people would like are doing that. Like, if you're a person that has been jumping from relationship to relationship, I get it. And I promise if you are willing to like break those patterns, it is fucking worth it. It is fucking worth it.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm excited for whoever fills that fucking shoe size for you. Because you just
Me
see
too.
you're able to tell that you're in the right path. Um, I see a lot of people going through the same journey as you, and I wrote down a couple questions. The first thing that stands out to me instantly is that not once did we mention him towards later in the conversation. That shows you where you're at and how much you know yourself, and the fact that you're able to say, I did this because of this one, and I did that, and I did this, and you're talking about yourself constantly is very different, right? Because what do you hear when there's a divorce? Is like, oh no, him, her, fucking him, her, this and that, he's this, she's that, he's this, he's this. There's never that part of that.
Mhm.
And like as the more conversations we have is like, and I just have with my wife and other people, is like it's so fucking hard to be honest with yourself.
Mhm.
It's so hard. It's so hard to be honest with yourself and look at like, oh, this is the role that I'm playing. This is the role that I'm playing in any relationship, and how much am I at fault
Mhm.
of this and that? Because I don't know whether for me, I feel sometimes I don't know if it's my ego, and it just I still have to work on turning that off. Or like Celia might tell me something, and I'm like, oh, but I feel attacked, and I feel that. So then it's automatically to defend, and I'm like trying to work on not being like that and being like, okay, motherfucker, you're not a bad person. She's just pointing this shit out on you or something that you might need
Mhm.
to work on, and it doesn't mean the end of the world right now. But usually, and I would say definitely less than before. It's just like, okay, I get it. And it's not so much of like rejecting it and feeling attacked and having feeling hurt or any of that stuff. So that alone, the fact that you start and you end with yourself is a completely different shit that is not out there. Because we're all always blaming other people and we don't look at ourselves and the role that we play in that. And I have experience and analyze myself a lot. um I do and pay attention to our relationship with my wife. I don't think I've ever paid attention to if I'm doing something that I'm trying to like something that I have that I'm trying to have her to do. And my other question that came up with that was, do we look for people then automatically to fulfill those things in like our relationships, like romantic relationships? And if that's
Absolutely.
true, it makes 100% sense why the fuck I found Celia and why she did that, right? Like as you're talking, I'm like, oh shit, this is why this fucking worked, and this was like it works that I was looking for.
Yeah.
Like it makes 100% sense how the same shit like it's one thing that's amazing to me is how we end up figuring out, or I end up figuring out that it's all the same shit. Like I told you before, it's all very similar experiences, right? So through my own neglect, through my own experience of the same shit, it will make sense that I find somebody that's gentle and caring and nurturing and all that. It makes 100% sense that I will find somebody like that, and I would want to be with somebody like that, even knowing nothing, even knowing any of this, not having any of this information, because we've been together for 15 fucking years, and not
Mhm.
knowing any of this at the beginning is crazy, and it makes 100% sense, right?
Yeah, and if I may, because yes, she is very like caring and loving, right? And she also has like that avoidant attachment style, right? That like
Yeah.
even if she has this like gentle part, part of like that wound is a part of like maybe like you want to talk about shit like how do I refocus my camera? This is pissing me off. Oh, there. Thank you.
Oh, your hands did it.
um that maybe like you're like, let's talk about this right now. And she's like, wow, I don't know how to do this. So I'm gonna like back up, right? Or even with you saying like her bringing stuff up, right? Like I feel like attacked. So it could be maybe the way she's bringing it up takes you somewhere else, right? So So yeah, like we are constantly, um when we haven't like addressed our wounds, we will find the thing that will confirm our wound all the time,
Yeah.
all the time. But the difference I think with you too, and even though I haven't been part of like that whole journey, because like I moved to Mexico, whatever, we lost touch a little bit. Just seeing you and talking to you both, the growth that you both have been willing to put in the relationship is amazing. Because I think it's unrealistic. Because I also don't want to give people the wrong idea that like in order for you to find your Shaquille O'Neal shoe, you need to like be super healed, and not that healing ever ends. W- it is possible to be wounded, haven't worked on your wounds, find another wounded human, and you both heal together. Because relationships are one of the best ways to do that. But you
Hmm.
both have to want it,
Hmm.
right? Like with my husband, like, and that is till this day, like it's something that I like admire about him, is he's a very smart human. He's so smart. And I know that if he wanted to like address his wounds, he would be haría trizas con el mundo, because he's really smart and he is a very caring person. Like he's a good human. But just like he doesn't want to, right? So like I would tell him like, hey, like go to school, because he's an engineer. So he's really really smart, like he's extremely smart. and and I would tell him like, go to school, like do this, do that, like, but he would be like, yeah, yeah, yeah. That part of appeasing, right? Of like, yeah, yeah, I'll do it, but not actually like follow through with that. And I would be like, dude, you're wasting your fucking time at this job. But he was completely okay with it.
Hmm.
He was completely okay with it. So who the fuck am I to come and tell this person you have this great potential? And they're like, I am fine here, bro. Like I don't want to move. Right? So but it is the part of that's fine. You can find somebody with potential. You can have a lot of potential, but you both have to want to exploit that potential. If one person doesn't want to do the work, it's going to be really hard. Or you both stay wounded and stay in a not so cool relationship. But if that works for you, that's also okay.
Yeah. Yeah. We shit you not. We have asked us that question. Why? What the fuck are we doing different? Like what? Why are we working? Like why do we have a good relationship and we see other shit struggle? Like what was it? And um, I mean, I'll partly talk about it when it's my turn to talk about my episode, but I came in with the idea to relationships to be like, if you're bullshitting, this shit is not gonna work. You need to communicate openly. We need to communicate directly because of the relationship that my parents had, right? Like I made an observation early on to be like, this is so stupid. Why are they fighting about this shit? You just gotta be talk about it honestly and they would figure this out. This doesn't make any sense. So I walked in with that shit to be like, we need to talk about shit. You can't fucking do it. Like I bring this knowledge into the relationship that we can't fuck around. And if we're lying about ourselves, I see where this is going, and shit's not gonna work if we're not open and honest and have a communication with the thing, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And that definitely helped out, and it makes sense what you're saying. The willingness for both of us to talk about it and both of us to do that. We definitely went through our struggles and our painful points and times where we were just like she describes it. There was a point where we were just roommates, and it was painful and hurtful and all this shit. And eventually, we figured it out. And yeah, it definitely has to do with the fact that like we both did want to work at it. You know, it's definitely that makes a lot of sense. That has made a difference. Um, but yeah, that was something that we asked ourselves, like, what are we doing different from other couples that we hear, from other couples that we see struggling, from other, what is it, you know? And I think what I just told you brings makes a lot of sense in that. Um, so yeah, I think if I'm understanding correctly, and like I said, I haven't put a lot of as much effort, I think, into studying relationship and studying those things. Is at the end of the day, you don't want nobody. You don't want to depend on anybody to make you happy. You don't want to depend on anybody to bring you love. It makes it helpful. It makes it better. It makes it happier. But I think, and this is my experience, is like if I can find it within myself, and maybe I'm saying it, I'm looking at your reaction, but I feel like being okay with who you are as yourself, right? Like that's the way that I take it. I'm okay and happy with who I am and all this.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
And then I'm able to be myself in the relationship, and I'm trying to, like, I'll be, like you said, you make it better. You make everything more amazing. I can lean on you, I can do all this. But if I don't take care of myself at the same time, like, I just don't think that shit's gonna work. And if you're finding that shit in somebody else, I don't know if it work. And then like the concern of like, and you can, like I said, we can go back and forth, and you can 100% tell me if I'm wrong. It's just how I'm understanding it.
Mhm.
Because then I thought, well, like, yeah, if you don't heal that, and your abandonment is so strong, you could have been easily continue to take shit that you don't need to take because you were so afraid of confirming the fact that you were too much. So
Mhm.
then you could have continued to take on the cheating, continue to close your eyes to different things, continue to, you know, not get treated the way you deserved because you didn't want to fulfill that shit of like, I am too much and whatever. So if by you healing yourself, then allows you to be in a healthy relationship, I think. I don't know if that makes sense. I just think of like, yeah.
I think like now that like the second part that you're saying, like that part of addressing our wounds, right? If I don't address my wounds, like I am going to allow people to continue to confirm them, and I'm going to be putting that weight on that person to somehow come and like heal that part. So when you say like I don't need to depend on others for love, I'm like no, 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 we do. We we that is absolutely I- and that is one of the things that we've talked about in past episodes, right? Like this idea of individualism, that like oh no, like you need to be good by yourself, you don't need to depend on people. And I don't believe that, especially with the love part,
Hmm,
because even if I'm wounded and I haven't worked on my wounds, I deserve to be loved,
hmm,
and so does the other person,
hmm,
right? um but if we not but and if we don't address our wounds, then that is where we start repeating patterns. Because like I said, that's what I was doing. Like even in within my relationship, my marriage, I was um I was in that marriage, but still, like I would have, como dice mi mamá, mis velitas prendidas, were whenever I wasn't feeling that attention from my ex-husband, I would know who to text. Like I would know who to text to like get that.
hmm,
Right? And that in itself is also like that could be considered cheating too, depending on the arrangement that you have with your partner, right? Of if I am flirting with somebody else over text, even if we're not like seeing each other, or but just like the flirting part of like, oh, estás bien bonita, or eres hermosa, y eres esto, y eres lo otro, right? And I would do that, and I would do that constantly, right? So like I forgot, I lost my train of thought. Oh, the repeating of patterns. And that
hmm,
was what I was doing in every relationship. Right? So then I don't want to do that anymore. That is why I address those wounds. So part of it is I cannot expect somebody to come and give me that Shaquille O'Neal shoe love if I'm also not able to give that in return.
hmm.
So I think what you meant in terms of like I don't want to depend on anybody in terms of your healing and your wounds, nobody can come and heal it for you.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You're going to have to do the work. You can do it alongside your partner, right? Cuz if I don't believe in it, I would not be a couples therapist because that's literally what I do in session with my clients. I uh, I talk about the things where I'll use my relationship as an example. Um, when he wouldn't dance with me, I love dancing. I love dancing, and it was something that he wasn't like. He knows how to dance, but he just it wasn't like his like. Oh yeah, let's dance. So that would get me really upset when I would be like, "Vamos a bailar." Like it could be like we could be here at the house and like having dinner with people, and there would be music, and I'd be like, "Vamos a bailar," and he'll be like, "The fuck?" Like no, and that would devastate my soul. Like it would be like in a big ass motherfucking argument. So if I were a therapist for my relationship, I'd be like, okay, that is the trigger, right? Of like your husband saying no to you dancing. What does that mean for you? And that part of and I can't necessarily like do both therapist and client work, right? But like the meaning that we make of that, right? It is attached to the wound. When he doesn't dance with me, like I'm making a reach, right? Like connect with me, and I'm getting shut down.
Mm,
So it's that part of like that rejection, that abandonment again. So if he was also doing the work, like, or if I were in therapy with this with me, if I were the therapist of my relationship, I'd be like, can you turn to your partner and can you let him know when you don't dance with me, I feel abandoned, I feel rejected. And through that vulnerability, we've talked about how there is strength and vulnerability of me looking at my partner and saying, when you don't dance with me, I feel rejected, I feel abandoned. And that person then answering that vulnerability with, I'm not abandoning you. I love you. I'm not rejecting you. Like whatever. Like that in itself is fucking healing. So you can use really not use. You can lean on relationships to heal. Because I've had, even if I don't have a romantic relationship right now, romantic quote unquote in the way that I've been indoctrinized to believe romantic relationships are. That could be another episode maybe, but um the relationships that I have now have helped me heal so much. Like even right now when we're having this conversation, right? I'm telling you like in my relationship I felt like I was too much. And you telling me like you're not too much. I love having these conversations with you. I'm like that's all that I'm needing for my healing. Like that is healing.
mhm.
So thank you for adding a piece of that healing to the too much negative core belief. Um, but we can definitely rely on relationships, like because even my therapist, because we've talked about, I've been I've been separated since March of last year, officially divorced since May. So it's been a little over a year. And I've like in that fucking year, like I've put in motherfucking work, like work to better myself, to look at my role, to look at like really like what am I doing that has been hurting other people. So things have been like okay.
Mhm.
And she's like, so dating. And I'm like, like, and she's like, Norma, todo el trabajo que pudiste haber hecho sola, ya lo hiciste. Lo que, lo que sigue es encontrar una relación donde te vaya a mostrar otra vez esas cosas que faltan para que las puedas trabajar, pero no las vas a poder trabajar si no tienes esa parte,
Mhm.
right? So her telling me, girl, like everything you've needed to work on, we've worked on. Like everything that was within your self, we've done. If we want to continue doing the work, like you need to put yourself out there in terms of dating so that those things that still need to be healed can come up and you can continue healing. So it is we heal in community.
Yeah.
So
Good.
yeah, I guess I'm supposed to be ready to date now.
Yeah. I love being told that I'm wrong when I'm in the right mindset. I just love the challenge of like, yeah, no, this doesn't make any sense, or this is how it is. As I said, like that, that's cool, right? That's cool to see that. Um, yeah, I mean, yeah, it's definitely like you said. That makes sense, right? Because that's what healing is at the end of the day, just having those conversations and being vulnerable with it, right? It's I don't know how many times I'm gonna say this. I don't know if I said it in the fucking podcast, but I don't think it's the strength on it. I think it's almost everything. That's where the key lies, to have the thing to be vulnerable again, to have the courage, to have the love to be vulnerable again, and try it again is where everything lies. And I guess the balance of then, because when do you, like, let's say you go through that exercise that you said as a perfect example, right, of them, that person doing it, and if that person doesn't give a fuck, then you have the right to go tell them to go fuck themselves, right?
No.
No. So how much are you gonna take of that person being like not understanding that rejection is what you're getting, for you to be like, when do you make the decision then of like, this person is not the one for me because then they're not understanding or not caring or not seeing this? Teach me where that threshold is, or where's that balance of you opening up and a million times and then somebody just doesn't give a fuck. How does that go?
That's a very good question. As a therapist,
Mm-hmm.
when I have my therapist hat on, um, that is not for me to decide. Like I'm thinking of one couple specifically. They one of the partners is doing some of like the work, and when they get caught up in that their negative cycle, um they one of the partners is able to see like, okay, the cycle is here. I know my partner's reacting because of this, and I'm gonna try and be like, hey, this is not what I meant. This is what I blah blah blah. The other part, however, is constantly telling them, you need to grow up. You need to be independent. You need to like figure it out. You can't cry all the time. Right. And but that other partner is hanging on, and they still want to be in that relationship even when the other partner is not necessarily wanting to grow, and they're in that relationship still. I have another couple who I've seen for quite some time too, and after probably 2 years in therapy, one of the partners is like finally starting to open up and talk about his emotions, because he would not he would not. And but her his wife has been able to hold on, hang in there, and now he's like starting to open that up, and they're seeing that light at the end of the tunnel, right? So sometimes it takes a while for
Good.
one partner.
You do not realize what you just told me. You try to see what I understood all this time behind the scenes, right? I'm too pushy. I'm too mental health thing. I'm too go to therapy. I'm too let's talk about this. Let's change yourself. And the thing is, Steve, you're not gonna change the fucking world. You're not gonna do all this stuff, and like you need to kind of like dial it back and let people come to their own time. But how come in your fucking couples thing, you're just like, yeah, go ahead and stay here and try and try and try as long as
No,
you
no,
want
no.
to,
I don't
and you're
tell
gonna do that.
people.
No, no, no. I mean, like you're okay or you understand what's happening, right? Because then what you're telling me is that I can do whatever the fuck I want as long as I want to and I have the energy, and you're not nobody to let me decide when to stop and trying to heal people.
Yes and no, because if
What's the difference within? What's the difference between me and the other person that you're like, oh, they're just choosing to do this? What? Okay, there it is. What am I doing wrong by continuing to
you're
push?
you're not you're not doing anything wrong. I
Or what's
think the
the issue?
difference I think the difference for me lies in what capacity you're showing up right now. Like for example, like with the coaching client you're working with
Hmm.
right now, there's going to be times where they don't want to do the work, and even if you like tell them, like put it on their face like, bro, this is what you need to do, they're
Hmm.
not necessarily in a place where they are ready to do that,
Hmm.
because you have a commitment to them in that relationship. You cannot give up on them. You cannot give up on them because they're coming to you. They're seeking you out. By
Yeah.
them already seeking you out, they're letting you know, even if they're because there's a difference between wanting to change and wanting to want to change, right? Like even if I was going to therapy for like all of these years, I was wanting to want to change. Must be nice, but I wasn't actually doing the work. Within the last year since my divorce, I've like actually wanted to change. So I've like actually done the work. But they already are seeking you out.
Hmm.
This is your role, your fucking role. I'm letting you know that your role is to help me the fuck out. I may not like it, I may not want it, but still, your role is to never fucking give up on me.
Hmm.
When it comes to like relationships, where that is not, you're not their life coach and you're the one going to them and telling them, like with my friends, like if my friend is in like a fucked up relationship, I'll be like, bitch, leave. What the fuck are you doing? Or if they keep like, tengo ahí alguien cercano donde están en una relación donde constantemente le han mostrado a esta persona that no la valoran, la tratan como mierda. Like there is nothing in that relationship. Absolutely nothing.
Hmm.
And a lot of us family members have told her like, "Bro, like what the fuck are you doing?" Like ninguno de nosotros puede ver a su pareja. But she's still there. So all of us, like even me as a therapist, I can be like, well, wounds, whatever. But I'm not her fucking therapist. That is not my fucking role. That is my family member that is fucking up. So I'm gonna be like, bitch, bye. Figure it the fuck out. Go find a therapist or not. That's on you. But I'm not gonna waste my energy because
I.
also the type of like the part of with my clients, there is distance when it comes to, don't get me wrong, I love my clients. I care about my clients. But when like it's not the same love that I have for my family members, right? So it's fucking frustrating cuando le estás diciendo a alguien like, bro, you're fucking up, and they still decide to be in that relationship. At some point, you're like, fuck off. Vete a la chingada, dude. Que tengas tu vida de mierda and figure the fuck out, bitch. Bye. I think that's the difference.
Yeah. Got it. My bad for derailing it for 5 minutes. Uh,
Okay.
I was doing so good. I'm working on it. Uh,
You're
no,
good.
yeah. I mean, it's if it's let's talk about. Obviously, you can't talk about what we think he did wrong or what goes from that point with the affairs or that stuff. And you did allude that your behavior didn't, if I'm understanding it correctly, your behavior doesn't necessarily mean okay, it's okay for you to cheat, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because regardless of that situation, I think it's still wrong to do that, right?
Absolutely.
It's not excusable. It's not a thing that's okay, no matter in any situation. It's something that that I feel very strongly about, right? Like something that
Mhm.
we've discussed in the past. Like I don't think it's okay. I think if well, it just goes from much like always I talk about my experience, right? And what I believe and what I think and that stuff. Um I think it's I see the problems and oh well there that's how I tie it together. Sorry, my mind is working faster than my mouth. Um
I'm like, what? I don't know if we were asking you a question. Like, what is going on?
No, no, no. Yeah, yeah. Just to talk on the experience. Like my belief is that right. Like I wouldn't think I would ever cheat on Celia. Obviously, like I just think it would ruin the relationship 100% if I was able to do that. I think I wouldn't be able to trust myself. I wouldn't be able to trust her. I feel an immense fucking guilt. I've betrayed not only her but my daughters because I can see that the relationship being broken, how it affects my daughters for the rest of their lives. And me and Celia were to get a divorce because of that. I think of all those things and I think, oh, it's not worth whatever the fuck might happen for a couple of minutes, you know? Like it's not worth the shit. It's not worth the backlash and all this stuff that can happen. I just don't see it. I think about if I was ever in a fucking situation where I'm getting tempted and I absolutely, for whatever reason, fucking like start seeing somebody else, like I would go to her directly and be like, hey, this is fucking happening, and be direct about it and like, okay, we need to split up before I do anything because it just doesn't. To me, it's unexcusable, right? To me,
Mhm.
in my life experience, is something that is unexcusable, something that it's can be. I don't think it should be tolerated in any step of the way, right? Which also puts like pressure. Like we've actually talked about it, which I told her, right? Which you know how high of a standard I have for myself. If you ever do that, like I don't ever want to fucking see you again. Like you can leave and I'll deal with whatever things. Like there's not a fucking piece of me as soon as you do that that will ever fucking do that. So it's like I think it works both ways, right? To see to for her to know also how I feel. And I think she feels the same way, you know? Like she's obviously not as vocal as I am in any step of the way, but like that's how it works. Um yeah. And that's also because I understand. So my parents got divorced fuck what, 7 years ago, 6 years ago? I don't fucking know, around that time, and just the impact that it had on me as an adult, right?
Mhm.
Who was kind of starting to look at his mental health, who was kind of starting to understand shit, not really, and the impact that it had on me. I think I could only think how hard it must be on other people and on kids on that stuff. So to see that and to see the importance of once again having a two parent household and all that stuff, it just doesn't make any sense. And personally, I would never do that, and I wouldn't tolerate that, like not even one bit, because I find it as an unexcusable thing, no matter what. You know, I don't know what you think.
Again, that part of accountability. So here I go. So if even in within my marriage before we got married, like very early on in our relationship, and this is when I'm like, girl, what were you doing? Like you should have left that relationship a long time ago. I I remember on our first year anniversary of being together, not married, but like our first year anniversary of being a couple. I was like, hey, it's gonna be like 1 year tomorrow. Like, what are we doing, right? And then he's like, oh, I have plans with my friends. And I was like, oh, so like we're not gonna like celebrate. And and he's like, well, we can go to like breakfast if you want, and then like I'm gonna be with my friends like the rest of the day because we were like still in we were visiting Mexico at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And and that night I was so mad. I was so livid that that night I went out and cheated on him.
Mm-hmm.
So I've also cheated in the relationship, in my relationships, in all of them. And me choosing to, and this is the interesting part, because if you were to ask Norma from a year and some change ago about cheating, I'd be like, well, he wasn't doing this, he wasn't doing that, right? I would have put the blame on another person and just say, like, yeah, well, I'm doing this because I'm not getting my needs met. If you ask me from present, I would be like, yeah, I was very fucking wounded and I was going through this to these other people to get needs met that I needed to meet for myself.
Hmm.
So the actual and this is the part where it's important to discern or differentiate between your emotions, your feelings, your wounds, and your behaviors, right? Like, you are super allowed to feel neglected, you are super allowed to feel abandoned, you're super allowed to feel rejected, and you're allowed to be upset if those things are not being met.
Hmm.
How you choose to act because of that is your responsibility. So I could have done, like, that day I could have stayed home and cried, gone out with friends, um I don't know, anything, because my partner chose his friends over his partner um on their 1 year anniversary. But I didn't have to cheat, but I did. Right? So and even if you validate, because one thing that I like now live by is you can understand people's wounds and still not tolerate their behavior, right? For you're saying, like, I don't think I would be able to, like, handle that. Well, my partners found out that I would cheat and they would choose to stay with me. My ex-husband cheated the first time and I decided to stay with him. But I think it goes back to, because it is possible to heal relationships from affairs, but it has to be like a lot of repairing. There needs to be accountability from both sides. Not in the cheating part of, like, the actual action, right? But usually cheating is como la gota que derramó el vaso.
Hmm.
There's It's not the thing that starts things where they go haywire. No. Something is happening before in your relationship that the cheating happened.
That makes sense.
Um so as a person that has cheated and has been cheated on, um pre-wound, post wound, I think you can cheat and still. I right now, again, I haven't been put in that position anymore because I'm not dating anybody, but I right now I don't want to cheat anymore. I really don't want to do that anymore. Before I'd be like, yeah, if my needs are not being met, I can do it. Whereas now I'm like, no. Because the moment I want to cheat, then I walk away from that relationship because probably my needs are not being met. Because my if my needs are being met, I don't have the need to cheat. Granted, we all, like, it is I think it's dumb for us to be like, you're my partner and you're like the only person that I have eyes for. And, like, there's nobody else in this world that's gonna be attractive. And that's bullshit. You can be attracted to people, be like, damn, like, that person's fucking hot, and still be like, yeah, but this is my human, and I don't want to fuck that up, right? Because
Mhm.
you now have that awareness now, like, oh no, like, absolutely not doing that. Well, I didn't have that awareness at that point, and I'll be like, fuck y'all, cheat.
Yeah, I love that you're saying that. Like, it's excuse to be like, well, this person's doing this or not doing that, when in reality, it's the shit that you have to take care of yourself, right? Like,
Hmm.
that's a good perspective, or that's different than what you hear, because once again, it's all about, well, he was doing this, he was doing that, and we're gonna have more episodes about this shit come 100%. Because one of the things well, it was a couple of things I thought about texting you, but maybe I didn't do this. Like, the fucking lack of fucking awareness of this fucking conversation and this goddamn stupid gender wars and this shit that I see on like social media that like I try, believe me, I fucking see people's faces that I know that are not worth the fucking time of day, and I'm like scrolling instantly, and I'm just like, I still get see somehow some shit, and I'm like, what the fuck is this? Like, this is so bad. Like, you're doing the complete opposite of what a healthy fucking conversation happens. You're creating more division. You're creating all this shit.
Yeah.
It just doesn't completely make any sense. And the amount of fucking people, oh my fucking god, in the comments that are saying repeating this shit and believing this goddamn things because they're so fucking hurt. Like, you're so fucking wounded. You have saw these fucking problems, but yet you want to fucking blame this or say there's lack of that or whatever the fuck. It's just like
It's
it's
quote
it's
unquote,
almost
it's easier. It's easier to echarle el pedo to somebody else, right? Like,
yeah.
because
It's
like I
useless.
said, like, um, doing like actually looking at yourself and saying, "Oh shit, I had a role in this."
It's all the same shit. It's so
Yeah.
fucking. It's so simple. It's so fucking hard to say I'm hurting. This shit fucking hurts. I have this issue.
No.
This person hurt my fucking feelings. I'm fucking wounded by this. This shit fucking hurts. And therefore you come up with a fucking endless amount of shit to fucking, what's the word that I'm missing? To make it okay for you to fucking have all
Like
this
excuse
fucking
yourself?
hate. Yeah, to make it okay, to rationalize or whatever the fuck, to be like, I can do all this because you will go a mile and 1,000 miles and build a bunch of fucking walls and put mountains and all this shit and come up with all this million fucking things instead of say that shit hurt, this hurt me, and you go above and beyond putting all that shit to protect yourself instead of fucking being honest with the shit. Fucking once again, if I can just give you something again, look for the motherfucking pain and the sadness. Go in that direction. Follow your heart and your brain, and all this shit tells you to go to comfort and look at that shit, but go in the direction of the motherfucking pain and the
Yeah.
sadness, and that's where the fucking answers are. And I know it's hard, and I know all this shit.
Yeah, but people don't want to do
Just-
that.
yeah, they don't. They just come up with a bunch of other fucking excuses for that thing.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I can give you like 2 second, 5 minute, I don't know, however long, thing about just my experience with divorce, right? Like my parents, like I said, I mentioned it. Um, just since kind of this is the topic and how you've been affected and how I've been affected by it. Yeah, like I said, it happened 6, 7 years ago. I think Mia was about to be born or was just born or some shit like that when my dad decided to leave. And it was just like abruptly. From my perspective back then, it was like, oh, I'm fucking leaving and I'm going to be with to live with your aunt or some shit. So I was like, what the fuck? Like, okay, I guess. And it was just such a bad relationship that they had forever. Like, it was just not a healthy relationship, what the fuck so ever. Um, a lot of fighting, a lot of fucking arguing, shit getting thrown against the wall. Um, I'm thinking how much I want to keep going versus that, how much in depth I want to get to. Yeah, it was the toughest, I think the toughest times of my life during that time. To be the oldest and to try to be strong when all this shit was happening, to try to hide and protect my brothers in any way that I could. Um, to when I developed that thing that we talked about in the past about me crying in the shower, right? I'm
Hmm.
overwhelmed. I'm over that. So I would go cry in the shower. Um, that definitely came out of that, right? Like not others, not seeing them probably cry, or not even my parents probably. Just after feeling overwhelmed and all that. To my drinking, I started drinking and not wanting to be at the house. Like around that time when I was like, and I messed up. So like I'm talking back about my childhood now and how that led up to the divorce. Um, so yeah, um, started drinking, started doing all that shit, and so yeah, it's just to wrap it up and say like there was probably not a great relationship, the terrible one at that, and the conflict that was, and how the hard that was. So when it finally happened, it was like okay. Like my dad just came to the shit of like, yeah, that's it. I'm fucking moving. It's like, okay, cool. Um, it was just kind of out the blue. We figure out what the fuck we're gonna do and how we're gonna move from going forward. That it was a relief. It was a relief from all the pain,
Mm-hmm.
from all the trouble, from all the fighting, from all the shit, from all the seeing that. It was a relief. Um, so from my perspective, I'm thankful for his decision. Like I'm happy he finally had the courage to be like, this is not okay. Might as well just be done with it after so many years. That I'm sure it was a painful thing. And yeah, um, that
It's
brought a
not.
lot. Brought a lot of the, yeah, like I said, a little bit more peace to the household. And then the other, well, the other side of it is now the what's tough as kids. And I'm telling you, I don't know what the fuck it would be like as a younger kid, but like as them getting the divorce as an adult about to have a child is like, well, now I have to pick because obviously it wasn't a healthy divorce, right? Still not talking to each other or any of that shit or all that. So then it's like, okay, who the fuck do I want to upset? What family side do I want to upset? Of like, do I go? Do I invite them? Do I invite them? Like, now there's two birthday parties, maybe one at this house and one at that house. Like, how do we go about that to make sure that we try to make peace with everybody and dealing with that, and um, also dealing with mm, still trying to help them heal and them not having, or one of them not having the thing to be like, this is still my parent. What the fuck you want me to do? Like, this has nothing to do with me. Like, once again, them leaning on me or on us to try to help them out. And just I remember telling um one of them, like, the fuck you want me to do? Like, that's still my parent. Like, you have to separate this relationship of my relationship with you as your son and my relationship with that person as my parent. We have to separate that. That's not the same
Mm-hmm.
thing. He will
Yeah.
or she will, whatever, they'll be my parent forever. And you
Mm-hmm.
can, that has nothing to do with us. It's a completely different thing. And I understand, right, from that other parent being so lost and all that shit and wanting to get the help, but it would just made it tough to do that, when to separate that. And then seeing like one of my cousins talk about that, going through the same experience and all that split. I think that's a common thing, right? Like, unfortunately, like, they're looking for help, but then they look for us as their kids. And it makes it so tough because we're like in the middle and you're like, what the fuck am I supposed to do? Like, who am I supposed to tell? Who do I choose to hurt their feelings, like I said earlier? Or how does that, like, so it doesn't make any sense? So yeah, I would say, like, from that perspective, it's like, don't fucking don't bring in your children to this shit. It's hard enough,
Yeah.
find somebody else to help you. It's
Yeah.
not our fault, and it's a different relationship, and we have nothing to do with it. It's very different than that. Um, but yeah, it was hard for those specific things, and like, I guess just like anything else, time just helps out, and you kind of get used to, like, well, this is the way it is. This is the way it'll be, where you have to kind of decide, and you kind of have to see who you want, whose whose turn is it.
Hmm.
Do you celebrate, change the holidays or the birthdays or all that stuff, and how do you manage that when it's an unhealthy
Yeah.
um thing, an unhealthy divorce?
Yeah. I'm so glad that I don't have any children. Um, because I'm sure that would have complicated things so much more for me. So I'm really really glad that that's not part of the equation. It can be just like a very clean cut. Tú para un lado, yo para el otro. So I can't even um, fathom fathom that because it is even if you know like the decision is like the right one for you, making that choice is really hard. Divorce is like making the actual choice of getting a divorce is so difficult. I can't even imagine how long it took your dad to actually like decide and to leave. Um, I think it took me like a month to actually decide that I wasn't going to. Because even after like the whole thing happened, I was like, "Mm, do I stay?" Like I did think about it because divorce is also like so stigmatized, right? Like si te divorcias es un fracaso, it's a failure. So like even as like me being aware, me being like a therapist and everything, and I'm like, "Oh my god, am I really gonna get a divorce?" Like, oh my god, like, or could we like work on it? And yeah, like I didn't tell what's happening. I didn't tell my parents until a month after. Like I moved in with some friends. Like I left my household, like I left my apartment, but I didn't take any of my shit. Like he would go to work in the morning, I work in the afternoons. So he would go to work in the mornings, I would come, get some clothes, change whatever, and then I would like leave. Because I was still debating it because that making that choice is really hard. It's really fucking difficult.
Mhm. I love this tangled wired fucking brain that I imagine myself in every time there's like something that aligns and something that connects in some other way. Like when I unlock a next level of thinking about shit is amazing. So everybody talks shit about our fucking generation and the generations below about the divorces and like, oh, no fucking relationships and they're gonna be that and then I left it at that, right? I was like, yeah, fucking, this is just a thing. As a wedding photographer, is like, yeah, 56% chance I think of just getting divorced and like 30% or 20 something percent chance out of being unhappy. So like, yeah, but as you're telling me, it's fucking good that people are getting divorced because you're in the fucking process of at least trying something else instead of just being in the fucking relationship forever. Like I hadn't thought about that. That's where I'm like, oh shit. Like it's a good thing. It's a good thing that you're fucking getting divorced and trying to figure shit out instead of suffering in the relationship for the rest of your fucking life like parents and grandparents fucking did. So it's
Mhm.
actually a good thing. So it
Yeah.
shouldn't be frowned upon. It shouldn't be shitted on. It shouldn't be talked shit about. Pretty much just whatever the fuck the culture and society tells you. If you're doing the opposite, you're doing the good fucking thing, bro. Like that's what it ends up being at the end of the day. It's just crazy how literally just you made me realize that it's good. It's
It
fucking good. It's good that
and
you're finding yourself. You're trying. You're fucking saying this is not okay. I don't give a fuck what anybody thinks. Everybody can go fuck themselves, and I'm gonna fucking get a divorce and go from next thing in that. It's beautiful.
it is now.
Yeah, I know. I know. Everything is in the middle. I understand the shitty thing and irresponsible. That's not what I'm talking about. Damn it! I'm talking about people that actually put it in the fucking work and try. And I understand. I know what you're gonna say, but go ahead and say it because it still needs to be said.
It is now that I'm past it, and well, not necessarily even past it, right? Like I think because even the other thing about divorce too is, and this one still hurts, like every time I talk about it still hurts, the grief that happens. Okay, when you lose a person to death, there is an end. You know, like as soon as you put that person down on the ground, you cremate them, whatever, that relationship ended because it was um you're losing a person physically.
Mhm.
When it comes to divorce, you're losing the person, you're losing the children you're not going to have, you're losing the house you're not going to buy,
Mm.
you're losing the grandkids you're never going to, like, and also like the other part, and maybe like with this like a little bit different but kind of the same with you with your experience of, you're also lose the other side of the family, like his family. I miss his parents so much. They're the sweetest fucking people. I love them both so much and I miss them. But I can't, if I like truly want to like move on, like I can't keep that relationship, right? I mean, I could, but I don't know. Um, but like the grieving process is like it's the part of the things that you wanted with this person, the future you're not going to have. It's so difficult to let go of, right? Because I'm like, and it's very ironic because this is I don't know what it is, maybe the energy, but a year before, or yeah, a year before I got a divorce, I opened up my own business. And it was doing okay, but it wasn't like thriving. I could not live off of that. I was working with somebody for somebody else while having my business. And they no me llegaban clientes. Like I could not thrive in that. I could not thrive. And it's beautiful and it sucks. As soon as I walked out of the relationship, within the next I I separated in March, and I think by like June, July, my practice grew so much. I like in terms of like income, I brought in so much more income. Like in this year and what however long like that I've been divorced, I've saved like by myself so much money. And it sucks cuz I'm like all of this I wanted with you.
Hmm.
I wanted this growth with you. And now it's not gonna happen. It's cool that I like get to have it by myself, right? Like because I'm like, fuck, like literally within 2 months of getting separated, which is one thing that I also love about myself. Like I will use my fucking rage and will do something with it. Now I've like completely on my own. I don't work for anybody. My own private practice. So I've like made some positive things from that. Like I've grown so much from this experience. But it's like now I don't get to share that with that person that I thought was going to be my life partner. And that's tough. That's really
Mm-hmm.
tough.
Yeah. Yeah. This is like as I'm thinking now, like this is the shit that like the podcast is for us to record our conversations to share it with the world, but
Mhm.
this is like this is healing for me and you.
Yes,
Like as much
absolutely.
as much as I fucking care about the listeners and all that shit, I need this shit. You get me? Like
Mhm.
I need this type of conversations because they're helping us.
Mhm.
And the
Yeah.
example and I thank you for the willingness to talk about this, and this is going to help you even if it's a little bit, it's gonna do that, and that's the hard part, right? And that's the shit that we need to have. And I'm just thinking like, yeah, like have this conversations, pursue these conversations, and do that, right? Have that,
Yeah.
be vulnerable, want to talk about it, because this is a thing of like, yeah, I thank you for it, and talking about it, because it's not easy, specifically knowing that people are gonna watch this, that people are gonna see this, and you don't know who it is, and your honesty and how it might be perceived by other people or whatever the fuck. Um, and it's not easy, but this is the point of it, I just wanted
Yeah.
to talk about how important it is to have them, to have these conversations.
Yeah,
Mm.
absolutely. And yeah, like I was really nervous at the beginning, right? Cuz I'm like, "Oh shit, like I'm going to go to a wound." Because it is a wound. I don't know if you ever had a wound where una cicatriz, like a scar that is
Mhm,
like tender to the touch.
mhm,
Um, and that is what I'm doing, right? Like I'm like touching that wound, and it's uncomfortable. It can be painful. but it is, again, like, you going back to what you were saying of, like, you need to go into the sadness, you need to go into the pain, um because it is healing. It is healing to be able to share my story, to be vulnerable in the sense of, as somebody that likes to, like, fight, doesn't quit, to be able to say, like, I can't do this anymore, was hard for me.
Yeah.
Um so admitting that, like, I'm the one that walk away from the relationship, that I ended that relationship, is like, it's difficult, it's very vulnerable. Um and you saying, like, yeah, we don't know who's going to listen to that and how they're going to perceive it. And that's also, like, one of the gifts of being able to do this work, because however people perceive it doesn't have to do with me.
Hmm.
It has to do with them.
Yeah.
I
That's
am I'm, like, sharing this story from a place of love, from a place of care, from a place of vulnerability, right? And if people want to receive it as such, good. I hope it does something for you. And if it doesn't land like that, I invite you to see what it is about you that this story is moving. It's
mhm.
stirring some shit up for you, and I invite you to lean into that if that is the case.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's just to more insight into what's happening with this conversations. Once again, to try to encourage the listeners to pursue this conversation. Since you're once again you're showing me a perspective on something that I never talked about with anybody, right? Like there would never been a discussion openly about divorce and how it went. Specifically about, like I mentioned, you talking about it yourself, but I'm more aware of that. Like I never thought about that, obviously, because I never been through a divorce. To think of how your future and the idea of kids and grandkids and growing all together and all that shit, like how it comes to an end, right? And you have to say goodbye to that. And those are thoughts that
Yeah.
I'm having. But the you're giving me knowledge. You're making it more, making me feel more compassion and more understanding towards you, but not only to you, but towards everybody that's been to a divorce.
Mhm.
By your conversation, I can understand them a little bit more, and I can put myself in the position based on the conversations that we're having this time around, where I can be less judgmental. I can be more understanding, have more empathy towards whatever's happening because of understanding again the pain, right? Like you sharing this allows me to
Mhm.
see the pain that you went through and that other people go through. So it makes me a better person. It makes me more aware, right? Because I think it happens once again, this whole shit with society it's easy for you to judge and for you to jump into conclusions and for you to be like, oh, that doesn't make any sense. But like we often don't think deeper about the experience and how
Mhm.
complicated and everything is, right? Like everything has both sides and everything somewhere in the middle and all that, and it's complicated and it's hard. But yeah, it's
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
completely, like I'm telling you, even with what I know, my experience was like, oh, she's about to say like he and me and he and me and he and me and he and me. So completely to see the responsibility that you're like just taking about yourself and how you see that, it's gonna make a big difference. Watch. I'm 100% sure of that, because anybody that's interested and listens is gonna expect the same thing and is gonna be like, "What the fuck?" It was all about her and her what she did wrong and how she pushed them away and how this and all that stuff. What about what he did and all that stuff? But that shit don't matter.
Mhm.
You can only control yourself.
Yeah,
How much
I
you go
can
through it.
only do that. I mean, I wish I could heal his wounds, but I can't. That's not my job. Um, but I still, even despite all of it, I think in that relationship, like, I learned a lot about myself. I grew a lot as a human. Um, I got to experience things for the first time with, like, a life partner, like, who was my life partner at the time. Um, and I'm so grateful for that.
Yeah.
I am so grateful, like, to be able to buy like our first couch together, our first dining set, to be able to like move in together, have our own little place, like all of those things, like me los quedo aquí con tanto, tanto amor. Um, si en algún momento este episodio le llega a sus oídos, gracias. Te agradezco mucho por todo lo vivido. Um, Aún si terminó la relación, like, la tengo en mi corazón, siempre la voy a tener en mi corazón. So I don't regret it one bit.
Mm-hmm. Just like we talked about last time, right? It's about how you handle it, and how it makes
Mm,
you smarter, stronger, whatever. You know how you can be
yes,
thankful because it's a lesson that makes you a better person. It leads you to that.
absolutely. Absolutely.
It, like you said, it led you to look within yourself and
Hmm.
have that growth and have that. You know.
Yes.
Yeah. Alrighty. Anything else you want to say?
No, just thank you for the space. Thank you for the healing. Um, I hope this does something for the listeners. If you are deciding whether to stay or not in a relationship, look inward, see what your role is. Know that you can't change the other human, and go from there. Thank you. Thank you, Steve, for the healing that you provided today.
You're welcome. There's the email,
There's the
mindfulpodcastliving@gmail.com. Let us know
Mhm.
if you found it helpful, if you found it interesting, if you're liking the podcast.
Yes.
I know it's like hard to talk about. It's hard to hit the follow. It's hard to comment on this shit, but like it's really encouraging for us to hear, right? Like it really helps
Yeah.
us and it makes us happy when we hear those things. So the people that have reached out,
Mhm.
we want to
Yes.
definitely thank you. And yeah,
Yes.
don't hesitate to share. Just a little
Yes.
bit nudge of encouragement sometimes, that a little
Yeah.
reminder that we need to keep pushing. If it's helping you and if it's making a difference in
Yes.
you, if you like it, let us know. And if you hate it too, just let
Mhm.
us know.
Yeah. Yeah,
Whatever
that's
you
okay
think.
too. Yeah, so to the people that have reached out and have like said this has been helpful, examples are helpful, you can work on this, you can work on that. Like, I so appreciate y'all for reaching out. So thank you. Thank you to all of
Yes.
you.
Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe. Peace.
Bye.
It's so cheesy. Oh shit, the brand thing. No, wait, don't leave yet.